What's up, everybody? Welcome into Hockey Sense, presented by First Community. It's the Four Nations edition, man. Looking forward to this show. Hall of Famer Chris Pronger is going to join us. Has a long history with Hockey Canada, obviously in several different international tournaments. In fact, he's a member of the Triple Gold Club. I mean, there's only a handful of guys that can say that. And Pronger is certainly one of them. He's been very opinionated. He's been all over social media. This guy's been tweeting more than... a beat writer during a game, who just gives play-by-play tweets, during the game. You know that guy? It's like face-off, offensive zone, penalty, turnover, big hit. It's like you don't miss a thing. Although you complain and you kind of chirp those guys that do that until there's a time you've got something going on that's preventing you from watching the game. And you check out those individuals and they keep you posted as to what's happening. You don't miss a thing. But Pronger's been very active on social media, going back and forth with a number of people, including chiming into some of the tweets that I put out there. I was curious how people felt about Shea Theodore, going down with injury. Vegas obviously is going to be out with him, be without him for several weeks now, as he got hurt just 6 minutes into the tournament. Listen, they haven't come out and said what it is, and I don't expect them to, but it looks like a broken wrist to me, just the way that he bent it backwards. And I shouldn't even say broken, but it looks like a wrist injury. And then the way the doctors were looking at it on the bench, he was ruled out pretty much immediately. And they came out right after the game and said, hey, he's out for the tournament. I don't know about this rule, though, where you can't add players. I mean, listen, this is an NHL event. You want to protect NHL players. You want to give coaches the flexibility. If a player blocks a shot, he's got a bruised foot, maybe he's not 100%. You'd like to have an option to bring somebody else into the lineup and maybe rest that player for a game, especially if it's not a meaningful game. Although in this tournament, man, a short tournament, you're not going to find too many games that aren't meaningful. I mean, Saturday night shapes up to be an incredible, meaningful game. Everyone focuses on Canada, how meaningful it is for Canada, and it certainly is, but it is for the Americans too. I mean, let's face it, the Americans win in regulation. These regulation wins are huge in a short tournament like this because you get the 3 points. 2 points for an overtime win, and then 1 point for an overtime loss. So, even in losing the game the other night, Sweden still gets a point. Canada gets 2. If Sweden beats Finland, which they should get 3 points, assuming they win it in regulation. Although, I mean, as much of a rivalry we talk about with Canada and USA, I mean, that Finland-Sweden rivalry is just crazy. I mean, they absolutely hate each other. I mean, Sweden and Finland absolutely hate each other. And I think if you were to ask a number of Canadian hockey fans and even former Canadian players, we'll ask Chris Pronger, like, what is the number one rivalry? Is it the games against Russia or is it the games against the Americans? Obviously, Russia's not participating this year, so it's all about the game with USA coming up on Saturday. But if Canada beats USA in regulation, now USA obviously needs to take care of business against Sweden, which is not going to be an easy task in their next game. I mean, Sweden looked really good against Canada. They've got, and assuming Gustafsson continues to play like that, they're going to have a chance no matter who they play against. And they're so good defensively. They've got elite players on the offensive side of things as well up front. They're good. I thought Finland was good. I mean, I didn't expect the wheels to fall off the way that they did. Boldy getting the deflection at the end of the second period, I think, that kind of allowed everyone to exhale and just take a deep breath. Now you go into the, third period. Finland takes a penalty at the very end of the second period. Matthew Tkachuk just spins and throws a puck on net, and it goes off of a Finland defender and deflects off his stick and goes in. And now Team USA all of a sudden has a 2-goal lead. And now the floodgates just open. I thought Brady Tkachuk was the best player on the ice. I thought he set the tone for Team USA. I mean, both with his physicality, his intimidation, obviously scoring a goal. And then obviously, listen, to me, it's an obvious decision. You get a tournament like this, and just the style that Matthew and Brady Tkachuk play, it only makes sense for them to play together. I'm not saying you do that because they're brothers and their families are in the crowd and, you just want to do, something cute, just to turn this into a sideshow and make it all about the Tkachuks. No, but their games match up with one another. I mean, this is an opportunity to put them on the same line and really create issues for opposing teams, which is exactly what happened last night. You had Jack Eichel in between them. Eichel quietly had a great game. Austin Matthews quietly had a great game. And these guys just played a real mature game. You know, everyone talks about the youth for Team USA and the number of players who really find themselves in this situation from an international competition standpoint for the first time. There's not many guys, obviously, who have been through this before. They're very young. You know, they don't have a 37-year-old superstar the way Canada does. Although Sidney Crosby turned back the clock the other night, man. He was incredible, and you could not have written the script any better if you're the National Hockey League to have Crosby be the number one star, for him to take center stage and be the guy, and Canada to win that game. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit different if Canada loses, because I do think the worst case scenario for the NHL in this tournament is to have Sweden and Finland face each other in the championship game. Listen, it'd be great. I'll watch it. Both teams are fun to watch. Both teams have great players, but that's not what the NHL had in mind when they put this tournament together. And the way Finland played last night in the third period, they're not getting to the championship game. They may go 0-4 in this tournament. They may lose to Canada and Sweden. I don't see them beating anybody. And they're decimated on the back end. So decimated on the back end that they can't even put a defenseman on the ice on the power play. They use 5 forwards on the power play, which isn't a terrible idea. I mean, Barkov's so big, they put him up top. Even the way he defended a rush coming his way, he just looked comfortable, and he's got this big, long stick, big, long body, skates well enough where he can at least kind of kill a play if an attack is coming his way. But obviously you want him making plays in the offensive end and just demonstrating his two-way game altogether as a forward versus being a defenseman. But that's where we're at for Finland. They just don't have the bodies on the back end. This has been, I don't want to say way better than I thought it would be, because I thought it would be good. And my only, chirps about the tournament was, it's just kind of a made-up tournament. It's not an Olympic tournament. It's not a World Cup. You don't have Czechia involved. You don't have Russia involved. There's just too many superstars. And I'm talking elite of the elite of the elite superstars that are not participating in this tournament. And for an NHL-sanctioned event where you take 2 weeks off of the season, I mean, you want to showcase all of your superstars. So to not have a Kucherov, to not have a Vasilevsky, to not have a Draisaitl, to not have a Pasternak, listen, it's just not ideal. Let's put it that way. But I do like watching Canada play because they're loaded with all the elite players. And I like watching USA play because they're loaded with elite players. And you can make the same case for the two other teams as well, with, Sweden having the star power they have, and the Finns as well up front. I mean, you get Barkov and Rantanen and these guys. I mean, they've got some real good players, and they play hard. They play in your face. They're aggressive. They give you a second and third effort on the puck. And just by doing that, they should be able to stay in the game. UC Saros wasn't great, but on a number of the goals, he didn't really have a chance either. Kevin Lankinen, I would expect, would get the start. He's had an incredible year for the Vancouver Canucks. And I would expect him to get the start in Game 2 for Finland. They're going to have to make a change. Just getting text messages here, man, from some of these guys who are playing in the tournament, actually, who I reached out to. It's amazing. Everyone's pumping Brady's tires, man. Brady did set the tone. He was an absolute beast. An absolute beast. The big question mark comes down to goaltending. This is not your typical goaltending situation. I know the obvious response when people say, should you change goaltenders, is no, ride the hot hand. I mean, yeah, you typically do that in the NHL where you have a number one goaltender and then you have a backup goaltender. And yet you just typically don't make a change in that situation. You ride with your guy. Even in a short tournament, it's not like Aiden Hill, it's going to be so rusty if you put him in there, he's not going to be able to play. Bennington's played one more game than Hill over the course of the last several days. And I don't look at Aiden Hill really as a true backup to Bennington. I think Bennington's probably your best option in terms of who's the better of the two. But, Bennington, listen, he made the saves when he needed to make the saves. Now, some people would say, well, if he made the saves in regulation, he wouldn't have needed to make those saves in overtime. And listen, that's fair. I mean, sure, it's kind of stating the obvious, and it's true. But you just wonder what the design was and what the plan was entering the tournament for Canada. Did they truly say, hey, this is going to be a game-by-game situation. Let's see how Binnington does after the first game, and if he plays well, then we'll keep him in there? Or did they go into the tournament saying, hey, Binnington gets game 1, Adin Hill gets game 2, and then the better of the two goaltenders, just basically get the ball the rest of the way. And for Canada's sake, you hope they find their way to the championship game. That's kind of what I would do. I don't think there's that much risk. Now, there's always the risk of being second-guessed. And, if you make the change and Adin Hill doesn't play well, then obviously you're going to hear about it if you're Canada. So if you don't want to deal with that risk and you just want to stay the course and make the safest decision, then stay with Binnington. And it's not just the safest decision. It could be the best decision. I mean, I think he's your best goaltender. But did you bring these other two goalies with you to just not play? Like, are you planning on giving them a game? I think with the Americans, the options are just so strong. You put Jake Ottinger in there. I mean, geez, he's an elite goaltender. There's no real risk to disrupting anything. Hellebuck was fine. He didn't need to be great. The one goal he gave up wasn't good enough. I want to say this about the coverage, though, on ESPN. And I'm not here to complain about the coverage or chirp ESPN, but I will say this should have felt like a American show, a USA Hockey show. And to not have any USA Hockey representation on your panel just makes zero sense to me. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, I love Messier. I like PK. I'm not saying they shouldn't be a part of the coverage and they shouldn't be on the panel. That's fine. But invite a Mike Modano. Maybe even see if a Patrick Kane wants to come be a part of it and work on television for a few days. I mean, they've used Chelios and Brett Hall and some guys in the past. Mike Richter, somebody. Bring somebody who can speak on some experiences and tell some stories that are related to USA Hockey. Instead, it's an American show, and they're talking about, prior to the game, during the pregame show, Mark Messier is talking about his experience representing his native Canada. I mean, the audience doesn't want to hear about Canada leading into a game with USA. They want to hear about USA Hockey. I mean, you want to grow the game within USA Hockey, make it a USA Hockey show. I thought that was a big swing and a miss. That's a big swing and a miss for ESPN. I mean, come on. When they have USA Soccer international matches on, they always have Alexi Lawless on there. They'll bring Donovan on there. There's always some type of USA Soccer representation. And those guys haven't even competed or had near the same success that the Americans have been having in ice hockey when you look at how the teams have fared in recent years in the World Juniors and whatnot. The last big major tournament the men's side won for USA Hockey, you got to go back to 1996, obviously. But even in 2002, they made it to the gold medal game. It was an incredible game. And they had a lot of success in Salt Lake City. Bring somebody on from that tournament, from that team. I mean, come on. It's not that doesn't take a whole lot of thought. You may have to spend some money because you got to pay somebody. You got to bring them in. You got to pay for their services. Get somebody in there from USA Hockey. I don't need, and listen, PK and Mark Messier, it's not about them. But it'd be nice to see somebody on the panel who has worn the red, white, and blue in the USA jersey in the past. Is that too much to ask for? I don't know. If I'm being ridiculous, you can let me know. Those are little things. It's just small details. But this is a USA show. It's an American hockey show. It's not a Canadian hockey show. And I didn't feel the same way when TNT did the game with Canada and Sweden because USA wasn't playing. And, I love the fact that Gretzky's involved and, he's got so much history with Hockey Canada in addition to everything he's done as an NHL player. You love having Gretzky involved, and I love having Biz and, Ace, whoever. But, if they're doing a game that involves Team USA, I'd like to see somebody from Team USA be represented who can speak on behalf of the program, who can speak on behalf of past experiences from past tournaments that they participated in. Tell us some stories. I know it meant a lot to Mark Messier to play for Hockey Canada. I'm sure it did. I understand. He's an absolute legend. He's one of the best we've ever seen in the history of the game. Take that to TSN. Take that to Sportsnet. For ESPN, we need something that can set the tone for an American audience. And if I'm USA Hockey, I'm like, come on, ESPN. If I'm the National Hockey League, come on, ESPN. Get somebody in there to represent the red, white, and blue. That's all I'm saying. So in terms of goaltending, UC Saros not good enough. Lankinen's the obvious choice there. If they want to stick with Binnington, listen, I'm a Binnington guy. I thought I was so happy he won that game. He needed that because there was so much, second guessing coming into the game about goaltending. If the goaltending for Canada was going to be good enough and all of that, I didn't want to see Binnington go in there, not play well and lose the game. I didn't like the first or second goal that he gave up, to be honest with you. I think a lot of people would agree with that. The second goal was getting a lot of attention from Kempe. The shot was from distance. He's a hell of a shooter. It went right through him. May have been deflected on the way. The other one was probably deflected too from distance. It just didn't look like Binnington had a good read on it, couldn't track the puck. It went right in the middle of the net, and he went down. And maybe they teach you to do that if you're a goaltender, although I'm listening to Carter Hutton and some other guys say otherwise. Wayne Gretzky said otherwise. Darren Pang said otherwise. So I'll trust their opinion. I felt like Binnington, in most cases, would stop that puck, and I think if you were to talk to him, he would say, yeah, I probably need to have that. Certainly the second one. The third one, nothing they can do about that. I didn't like the icing right before that by Parayko. Parayko got beat net front, but I thought Parayko played a good game and played very well. It's different for him. He's not used to having these guys on the ice with him all the time. He gets the puck at the top of the point. He's patient with it. If there's no play, just rim it down, behind the net, but there's nobody there. Typically, and it's not like you're playing with Toropchenko and Sundqvist and all these guys who are expecting that rim. These guys want to come over the top, whether it's Marner or McKinnon or McDavid, whoever it is. They get their feet moving. Braden Point, they come over the top. They want that pass, kind of in between the circles, just above the slot, where they can kind of create and do their thing from that standpoint. They play that puck possession game. So that's a little bit of an adjustment. I thought, though, Parayko, he was aggressive, though. Had a couple of shots on goal. I think he had 3 shots on goal. He shot the puck real well from the point. So, listen, that was a hell of a game. It got off to a little bit of a boring start, even though Canada had a 2-0 lead, but the overtime was incredible. And I know a lot of talk about 10-minute overtime. You got a lot of superstars saying, hey, I can't do this for 10 minutes. I didn't know they played the entire 10 minutes, but come on. It's better than a shootout. And even Nathan McKinnon said maybe 7 minutes. Well, fine. I'm not saying it has to be 10 minutes, but if they can extend it beyond 5 minutes to allow us to see more games end prior to going to the shootout. And you see the majority of overtime games, they don't get to a shootout anyway. But I just watched the longest shootout I had ever seen live in my life. Right before the break, the Blues and the Blackhawks, I was working the game. It went 10 rounds. And I will say, seeing a shootout, even going 10 rounds, it was not that exciting. It just wasn't. There weren't great moves. Both goaltenders were making saves, made it look a little bit easy. Thought the shooters made it look a little bit easy on the goaltenders. Radek Faksa ended up ending it. Sure, it's exciting because it is 10 rounds and the way the game ends and whatnot. But, watching one player go after the next, I'd rather watch a bunch of 2-on-1s and breakaways and see an overtime, if you're going to do it that way. Chris Pronger, he's going to have lots of opinions. He'll join us here in a couple of minutes. I'm looking forward to that. Coming up with Prongs. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. We talk about the small business lending, man, how important this is. Hey, if you run a business, listen, I'm talking to you right now, all you business owners. Are you ready to take the business to the next level? Yes or no? First Community, hey, they offer competitive rates and commercial loans. They have lines of credit. They've got the commercial credit cards designed to help your business thrive. They also have this dedicated team to help you get the funding you need so you can seize new opportunities, man. They're never going to say, hey, you can't do this. They want you to explore and take advantage of the drive that you have inside to do something different. So if you didn't know First Community did commercial loans, that's okay, because now you know. Commercial vehicles, equipment, real estate, even SBA loans, they'll do those too. So First Community, they've been in business for over 90 years. We talk about everything they do. One of the best places to work, one of the best banks in America. 90 years, man. You know you're doing something right. They want to see your business grow. Right in our town here in St. Louis, man. You can deal with them face to face. Stop into a branch today. Forehand Brewing Company. They make that mango lemonade hard seltzer, the Cam and Strick podcast mango lemonade hard seltzer. It's the best hard seltzer on the market. Get one today. I know there's a lot of good seltzers. This is by far the best one. We personally taste tested, dozens of different flavors to come up with the right one. And we did this with mango lemonade. We did not make a mistake here. We've made some mistakes with some other stuff, Cam and I. We didn't make a mistake with the mango lemonade hard seltzer. It's incredible. Pick one up today. Check out their incredible tasting rooms, 1220 South 8th Street in downtown St. Louis. You've got the one in Kirkwood, which is incredible. Date night in Kirkwood, man. Do that. You can take the kids too, but the kids, the experience they'll have at the Chesterfield location is unbelievable. You got the big screen outside, the lawn area, all the games out there. Kids are playing soccer and whatnot. So check that out. Forehand Brewing Company, First Community, also brings us Hockey Sense. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Do not sleep on the party goods that they have there, all the paper goods and whatnot. The party supplies, the decorations, the beer, wine, and booze. They've got that walk-in beer cooler. They've got incredible cigars, too. Get the app today. Download the app. The deals are so good, they call them steals. That's how good they are. You can do curbside assistance if you want to pick it up curbside. A lot of their locations have drive-thrus, too, so check that out. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, baby. Cheap, fun. But find the location nearest you. Again, find which ones have the drive-thru. You can shop from the app and then just go pick it up, man. It's you don't have to get out of your car. How nice is that? With Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Lordo's Diamonds. Get that special someone, something special in your life. Today is Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you. Are you looking to pop the question? I know many of you have probably taken my advice and they headed over to Lordo's to see Mike and Jimmy Lordo over the last couple of days. Last couple of weeks. They've got the best selection, best customer service, best everything over there at Lordo's Diamonds, right there in the heart of Ladue, right next to Truffles, 314-432-8008. Check it out. LordosDiamonds.com. They've been in business for 70 years, too. They're incredible. Say hi to Pat also. She's awesome. They truly treat you like your family. It doesn't matter if you're going in there, you walk in with a $100,000 budget or a $500 budget. Whatever it is, you're going to get treated the same over there at Lordo's Diamonds. All right. First Community brings us Hockey Sense. Chris Pronger is next. We've got our Canada jersey up here, our USA jersey, thanks to our friends over there at Fanatics. Pick one of those up. They got the Four Nations face-off patch right there. You can't miss that. So you got to love Canada. You got to love USA, man. We represent all of North America here on Hockey Sense. Hopefully those teams will face each other in the championship game. They're coming up on Saturday. It's going to be a hell of a match. Can't wait to see that one on Saturday night. Chris Pronger, the Hall of Famer, joins me next here on Hockey Sense. I'm Andy Strickland. We're live at the Half Coast Studios. Aiden's in the house. We appreciate everybody's help from Half Coast Studios. Prongs is next. Don't go anywhere. We only bring triple gold members onto this show. And those who are very loud on Twitter right now. Listen, you have been re-energized over the course of the last few days. I love how into this you're getting, Prongs. I feel like it's like nostalgia for you. It's like bringing back some competitive juices to see Canada back playing on the big stage.
I think it's been more the haters saying that these guys weren't going to play hard and they thought it was going to be like an all-star game. You know, it's an insult, number one, to the players, but to events like this, these guys have been begging for these types of events, and people are just looking for anything to complain about. I don't like the date. Why aren't they doing it here? Why don't they do this? Well, just like, you can't win no matter what you do. And why don't they just enjoy, there's only 4 teams. Why isn't Russia there? Why can't we have more than 4? I'm like, first off, they have a small window to fit this tournament into. I go without going into the whole political landscape.
Yeah.
that I may or may not disagree with.
Yeah.
4 teams over 10 days is probably the right number. Number one, you can't have back-to-back nights where you're playing. You need some time to go from the two cities involved. It makes sense on a number of ways. And frankly, when you look back at an All-Star game, the way they have it set up now, there's four teams.
Yeah, with the 4 divisions. That's been my only
Well, let's not say All-Star game again in this conversation.
ever. Did you enjoy playing in the All-Star game? That's the only time I'm going to say it.
When it was a good game.
Was it ever a good game?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be high scoring, but they won a couple of the games. The Toronto game in 2000, I think, was maybe 7-6.
You playing any All-Star games?
Merrill guys are out there not going 100 miles an hour, but they're trying.
You play in any All-Star games with Mario?
My first All-Star game was Gretz's last, which was 99 in Tampa, I think, or 98. I don't think so.
No.
There was a couple that I was hurt for LA, which I think was 03, 02. And then another one, or was that 01? And then 02. I don't know. I got hurt right before. That was 01. I got hurt right before the All-Star game and chose to have knee surgery, which was a mistake. And then broke my wrist and then went through that whole ordeal. So there's a lot of things that happened pre and post All-Star games, but it's for another day, Andrew.
Don't ever choose to have knee surgery. I mean, if they give you the choice, Prongs, don't have the knee surgery.
It wasn't, the problem was with the knee surgery, it wasn't bothering me to play. It only bothered me getting in and out of my car and in and out of bed. Playing, it didn't hurt at all. So it was just, let's not get into it.
Okay. It's not even a criticism. My only wish for a tournament like this, that you just have so many great Russian players, and it's kind of out of the league's hands in reality. So I just would have loved to see the Kucherovs and some of these guys, because I'm curious from your standpoint, because I hear a lot of Canadians say that their true rival is Russia, not the Americans. Did you feel like the games against Russia, there was more hatred than the games when you played against USA?
No, I think that has slowly evolved, and I think the temperature, as you'll soon find out on Saturday, has turned. I think when you look at the U.S., especially when you're looking at the U.S. players, Canada is their gauge. Canada is their marker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how good are we? Can we compete and can we beat them? And as Canadians, we have to look at it as, okay, 70s, 80s, and, part of the 90s was Russia. And as the game has grown and evolved, the U.S. has taken a large role in winning some of these tournaments, being spoiler and beating Canada. They beat us in 2010 in the round robin, and then we beat them in overtime in the finals. So there's a lot of history now with the U.S. where there was a lot of history before with Russia. So I would argue that the pendulum has swung, and the U.S. is our main rival right now. And when you look at the talent and their style of play, you could almost say that they're, based on last night and based on the players on their roster, they have a Canadian-esque team.
Yeah. I was reading about how Jack Hughes wanted to play with Austin Matthews, and he got that opportunity last night, but he was looking forward to and hoping to get that opportunity. Did you ever say, like, entering an international tournament, was there ever a partner that you really wanted to play with where you went to the coaches and say, hey, I'd love to play with this guy?
No, I think you find chemistry a lot of times, as we've seen in years past. Like I played with Al in 02. I played with him a little bit in 98. They kind of moved us the bottom pairing around a little bit. I played with Eric Desjardins and Al in 98, played with Al and predominantly in 02. And then, I think they like having that chemistry with guys that have played together as much. In a perfect world, they'd love Devon Caves and Makar to play together, but with the injury to Theodore, that throws a wrench into things. And you saw Bomeister and Petrangelo, I think it was 14, play together. So they like that, which, if the players are of the caliber, then you absolutely want to do that. But I think early they try to find what works and who's complementary. I remember in 06 in Italy, I started with Rob Blake a little bit, and we were doing great, but the other pairings were struggling to find chemistry, so they broke us apart.
Yeah,
and moved us to try to figure out the full back end and what you can put on the ice to be successful and not lose momentum and not lose any defensive capabilities or offensive capabilities.
Yeah, you got to find that balance for sure. Yeah. I'm curious your take on the rule where you just can't bring in an extra player, basically call in an extra player. I mean, it's an NHL sanctioned event, so you want to protect the players and make sure you're not putting any players at risk. I mean, if a player blocks a shot and now you're forced to play him because you don't have another body to bring in, even though he may not be 100%. Like, what's your take on it? Should they be more flexible with the rules with Theodore going down? I mean, should Canada be able to bring somebody else in?
Well, they have Thomas Harley in Boston.
Yeah.
So he'll be skating a little bit just in case.
Sure.
Which, the issue is how many guys you're going to have on high alert if there are injuries. I mean, they're planning a vacation, or they're planning to go home, or they're planning to do whatever they want to do during the off time that they're given. At what stage is that a risk? The player has not skated sometimes for 4 or 5 days, depending upon where they are. I'm sure they're working out, but a little different than being on the ice. And then you're thrown into that tournament going 100 miles an hour
against the Americans.
Yeah, like the pace of play is going to be insane on Saturday night. So it's a difficult position to put a player in. And I don't think they want to set the precedent of, okay, you three are going to be on high alert, so just be available. And it's difficult. The players are going to want to be that guy.
Right.
They prefer to be on the team on the outset.
That's what I'm saying. Expand the roster going in is what I was thinking. I know, not playing.
And then they're going to be like, well, why am I here?
Right.
They know they're number 8 on the depth chart on defense. Like, why am I here?
I know.
And by the way, not in the hopes, but on the off chance somebody gets hurt. I mean, I've watched that Theodore hit 1,000 times. It looks like he either broke his arm or jammed his shoulder. The way he hit the ledge with his arm as he was protecting himself.
Didn't look very,
it wasn't that
like a wrist, maybe? No.
Well, it looked like he hit his forearm or his wrist on the dasher board.
Yeah.
As he was trying to protect himself, or he jammed his shoulder up and did something in that regard. But it didn't look like it was that. I mean, it certainly wasn't a massive collision. It was just an unfortunate event that happens. I mean, listen, you can be crossing the street and hit by a bus. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Like, people are worried about, what if my player gets hurt? Player can get hurt in practice. We've seen guys blow their knees out training. Like, it's just a fact of life. Injuries happen, mistakes happen. Like, these are things that you can't control at times.
Yeah, it's just that's the worst case scenario, because everybody who's playing in a tournament like this, Chris, as you know, is so important to their NHL team. They're star players, and so they're almost irreplaceable. So you just hate seeing that.
But that's the trade-off.
Yeah,
you can't complain about not growing the game and not seeing best on best, and then complain about having injuries.
Hey, you're right.
Can't happen.
Yeah.
And that's where people are talking out both sides of their mouth, like, oh my God, this injuries, Vegas, oh my God, what's going to happen? That's just a fact of life.
Well, it's a Maple Leafs fan may be like saying what you're saying right now, and then all of a sudden if Matthews goes down or something, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God. So
I understand the fan's dilemma.
Yeah.
But but that's the cost of doing business and trying to grow the game.
Yeah. How much can this grow the game, you think, a tournament like this? It's been a great success so far. Both games have been wildly entertaining.
Well, I think now that there's going to be some consistency, they can now use it as a springboard, then to the Olympics, then to the World Cup, then back to the Olympics. Then, it gives the players an understanding of every 2 years we have a big event. I would not want this. I would not want something every single year. I mean, that would be a little much, but having a World Cup and then having the Olympics every second year, is a great way. And I see, people not wanting it during the middle of the season, but if you do it in September, with the toll the playoffs take and how long into June they go now, mid-June, mid to third week of June, you get no time to recover before you got to start skating and prepping. As you see, these guys are going 100 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So now try to do that in early September when players are still banged up. Think about how many guys had surgery after the Stanley Cup Finals this year.
I know.
So there's always things that, and then you don't have your top players.
And I felt like
this.
I covered Team USA in the 04 World Cup. I was with them 10 days for their training camp. And it wasn't during the season, and you guys were dealing with labor issues at the same time and all that. But I didn't feel like they were very locked in. You know what I mean? And maybe you're more locked in when you do it during the season. And obviously when you wait all these years and you got all these Americans who have never really been on this stage before, they're kind of doing this collectively for the first time. You've got McDavid playing with Crosby, and Crosby obviously, he doesn't know how many more opportunities he's going to get. So everybody just seems so locked in. Did you always feel the same intensity with a World Cup versus an Olympics?
I never played in the World Cup.
Okay.
I didn't play in 04. My knee would bother me. And I didn't make the 96 team. I was obviously early in my career.
Yeah, young.
So those are the only two opportunities I had to play in it.
Okay. And the World Cup was the Americans. They were not locked in, Prongs. I will say that in 2004.
Also, you got to remember it. A, not locked in, but B, knowing we were going to be locked out and the league was going to shut down. So
yeah, there was like, I mean, they literally left one night. And they took a plane, they took a jet to Detroit to go see Chris Rock, or Kid Rock, I'm sorry. And then they came back the next morning and had practice. Ron Wilson had no control over that. Brett Hull's getting scratched. It was just kind of a disaster. But fun nonetheless, to be around it. What do you think of the goaltending situation? A lot of people are, and I would agree. Let me just preface it by saying this. In the NHL, we look at it like, hey, you got to ride the hot hand, but typically you have a number one goaltender, then you have a backup, so there's some drop off. And I don't know if you see it the same way now. I mean, let's just focus on Canada. I'm wondering if there was maybe a plan going into the tournament that Binnington gets game one and maybe Adin Hill gets game two, or if they were just going to say, let's wait and see how he performs in game one, and then we'll stick with him, assuming they win and he plays well. And he played, I don't know what you thought about the goals against, but he certainly made some big saves and gave him a chance to win and ended up winning the game. Is it too much of a risk in a short tournament to make that switch? I mean, you're opening yourself up to be second guessed, or can you look at it differently than maybe you would in a typical NHL scenario?
Yeah, I think in a lot of these players have not played with them. You want to goalie defense exchanges, where rebounds are going to be. There's a lot of nuance to goalie and defense and interactions. It can go either way. It depends, again, as you said, what the coach and management have talked about beforehand, how they wanted to handle the goalies, and B, if there was going to be a rotation. With 2 days off in between, I don't know why you wouldn't go back to Binnington. If ultimately he is going to be the starter, that's the biggest game. In my opinion, you want to play well against the U.S. And if you're throwing an option at, we're going to start Hill in this one just to see how he does, I mean, I don't know why you would do that. Now you have a question, okay, Hill plays good. Now who's going to start game three?
Yeah.
You tell me who's going to start, because if Binnington goes in and he doesn't play well, you're going to Hill in game three.
100%. I think if you go to Aiden Hill.
Well, if Binnington goes in and plays well,
yeah,
you can still go to Hill in game 3 because now you won game 2.
and
Now you're essentially in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. I think, and to answer your question, if you were to go with Aiden Hill in game 2, then I think you just you make your decision moving forward based on who played better between Binnington and Hill in those 2 games. I mean, if Hill stands on his head, then obviously you'd have no reason to go back to Binnington. But I think the idea
But if he doesn't, now you're going back to Binnington. Now you're like, okay, you weren't you're not happy with his game 1.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't happy with Hill in game 2. Like, to me, it just gives a little too much to chance, and not enough into he's our number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, you roll with your number 1 until he's not your number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're choosing to start him in the first game and he's anointed as the starter, then you ride him. And in years past, like in 2010, we got spanked by the U.S. 5-2. Marty got pulled. Luongo goes in. Now he's the number 1.
Yeah.
And we ride him to the gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same thing happened in 2002. Cujo was a starter. Get yanked after we got pounded by Sweden. And Marty goes in and he's a starter.
Is the first game the hardest?
Yeah, yes, because you're trying to find the chemistry, in the lines. B, you're so excited. Like, the game the other night, Canada-Sweden, I mean, Canada came out shot out of a cannon. They're just flying around. And then you could see it just kind of, the temperature drop a little bit in the second period, and Sweden's hung around and just stayed with it. They started to tilt the ice a little bit. The momentum shifted. Sweden started kind of applying pressure. And then by the third period, they had battled all the way back. And frankly, probably should have won with some of the chances in that. And then that's when Binnington, it's not the saves you make, it's when you make them.
Yeah.
And he made the key saves when he had to make them.
Yeah. That's what Mitch Korn used to always say. It's not about how many you make, it's when you make the saves. It's the timely saves. It's interesting. I mean, McKinnon and McDavid, these guys are so fast, Chris. And McKinnon, he almost looks faster than McDavid until McDavid gets the puck and he goes up the ice and you're like, damn, he maybe is faster than McKinnon. They're both unbelievable. They make guys like Cirelli and Hagel in a situation like this, they make them look like fourth line players. You know what I mean? Because they play at such a different pace. I mean, it's fun to watch. I mean, it really is. And I love the fact that these guys are taking it serious, and people making a point of McKinnon on the ice before practice with Crosby, and they're working on.
Why wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Like why are people questioning A, their integrity, but B, their will to win and their drive?
Yeah, I'm with you.
And their motivation and their pride. I don't. What have those players done throughout the course of their careers that would indicate
that make you think that they wouldn't? Yeah.
Yeah, like at no point in any of those players' career on any of these teams.
Mm-hmm.
And they're playing for their country.
And if I'm Nathan, I mean, listen, they're good friends. You only get so many opportunities to play together anyway. Why wouldn't you go on the ice beforehand and pick his brain and do some stuff together? You know what I mean? Like, you take advantage of the opportunity there for sure. How much coaching goes into these games, you think?
Like X's and O's, hockey sense coaching, none.
Okay.
It's more the system that they want them to play.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, that would be the X's and O's of the coaching. These are the systems we want to play. Here's how we want to kill penalties. Here's the power play. They got XYZ players together. Here's the options that you can start with. And as we know, once the shot goes on goal, then it's, you're going off instinct and you're looking for seams and holes and players are moving in certain spots. You're watching video of how, if you're Canada, you're watching video of how the U.S. killed penalties yesterday and you're thinking, okay, in this situation, puck goes on net, it goes into the corner, I could pick it up, curl, this lane and this seam are going to be open.
Yeah.
Based on how they're defending and how they either collapse or how they protect. There's always stuff that you can freelance off of a shot. You can't freelance when teams are set. It's always off of a shot. Is when you can start to freelance and start to look for seams and holes.
It's interesting watching a guy like Parayko, for example, because, you know, he gets the puck, you know, he's got time, but, you know, his typical play that you'd see him make with the Blues, just rim it back behind the net. You got Toropchenko and these guys expecting that rim. With Canada, I mean, it's Marner, McKinnon, and McDavid. They're circling around the top of the circles, you know, they're wanting that puck there, you know. So I think that's where it takes some time to develop that chemistry with playing with elite players like that, right?
Absolutely. They don't want you to dump it in. And I would argue last night watching the Finn U.S. game, all the Finns did was they got it back to the point and they just threw it back around. They rimmed it around the boards a couple times. The U.S. got it and then they went back on the attack.
I know.
You know, so when you're playing with high level players like this that are talented and see the ice the way they do, you have to adjust your game, especially on the back end when you're used to playing with other types of players, grinders, whatnot, depending upon your system. You need to be looking for that open ice because you know they're going to find that open ice.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I do feel bad for Rantanen and Barkov and some of those guys. I mean, Finland had to use 5 players on the power play. They don't even have a defenseman that they trust to put out there with Heiskanen being out. I mean, they don't really have another option to go out there and quarterback the power play, which is interesting.
Yeah, they're pretty banged up. Their back end not very well known, and there were a couple guys that I didn't even know who they were. I didn't even know they were still in the league.
I know one guy, the guy who got the and I'll look it up, who got the blood and he got the boarding penalty.
Is he playing in Finland? Where is he playing?
They're not allowed to have non-NHLers. Because it's an NHL. I don't know. He was like, I noticed him right off the bat because he and Brady got involved in a scrum, you know, early in the game. And I'm like, I meant to look this guy up to say, and then he had the boarding penalty. It's a pretty dangerous play, actually.
Well, it was dangerous play, but he did not, you could see he was not trying to, the outcome was not what he expected.
He plays for Ottawa. He's got.
Oh, well, there you go.
He played he's played in 22 games in his career, 18 games this year. No goals, no assists, no points. So, no points in his career. But he's got a couple of penalty minutes. Hey, I know it got a lot of attention to put.
However, this is great experience for him, and I guarantee you, playing at this level is going to
help him,
bolster him when he gets back to Ottawa. I guarantee that.
Yeah. And it's interesting now learning that he plays for Ottawa, and it was Brady who was going right at him. Hey, doesn't it make complete sense just to put Brady and Matthew together? Not because they're brothers and it's going to make everyone, you know, warm and fuzzy and talk, you know, create storylines. Like the way they play, it would make sense to put them together. And they made the adjustment mid-game yesterday, and the team just completely took off. I loved Eichel between them. I thought Brady was the best player on the ice, Prongs. I don't know about you.
Physical, creating turnovers, wreaking havoc every time he was out there. You know, you could see both of those guys are excited, A, for this tournament, B, to play together, and then C, based on the commentary pre- and post-game, they're excited for Saturday.
Is it hard for a guy like Matt? Not hard, but like guys like Matthews and these guys, you know, if you don't score right off the bat, you feel like they want to get one, right? They want to make a difference. And he had a pretty strong game yesterday, even though he didn't score. But for those guys, like, how important is it that they get on the board, you know?
Listen, it's a short tournament. They won 6-1. You know, at what point, you know, you're not necessarily trying to run it up. You're not playing soft, but you know, it's 6-1. You're trying to get the game over with now, and think about Saturday. That will be the game you want him to show up for, and you want him to either A, produce or have a really good game. It's not always about producing. You know, again, we got a collection of elite hockey players playing together. They're all not going to score. They all have different roles. Yes, he's a scorer. He's on the power play. Whatnot, but you have other talented players accepting defensive responsibilities and roles that, you know, I think as long as they're winning, he's creating opportunities. He's creating, you know, high scoring zone chances, he'll be pleased with that. But yeah, you want to score, you're not going to press if you're winning hockey games.
Mm-hmm. One more question, then I'll get your take on Saturday night. Who you think is after seeing both teams play? So one game so far, what you think we can expect on Saturday? But you played with Crosby; he was much younger. What were your takeaways from playing with him as a young guy? Did he fit in with the veteran guys? Like, did you spend a lot of time talking to him? Like, what were your takeaways, and what do you see from him now versus when he was younger, still playing at the highest level?
Yeah, it was 22 back then. I think for him, what you see now is what you got back then. You could almost call him an old soul. Very mature, very much into the details, preparation. I think back then he was soaking up that Olympic experience and really, you're sitting down in the team room, you're going to other events, but you're focused on A, the experience, and B, winning a goal and making sure that you're doing everything humanly possible. And just his style of plays, he's as solid a two-way player as you're going to get. Face-offs, incredibly smart in the defensive zone, always makes the right play, knows when the lines are very important, in and out at the blue lines. The goal the other night to the OT winner, having the wherewithal to look a couple times to make sure Marner was where he was. Was he coming with speed? It's almost like he was looking at him like, hey, come up behind me, get going, making that eye contact that those top players can make. And then having the wherewithal to get back on side, knowing, okay, I made this play, I did this loop, now I got to get back.
I know.
Because he's coming in with speed. But just to see the dedication at 37 that you saw at 22, and he obviously takes great pride in his game and the game itself. He's been a face of the league since he came in was it 2007?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was
2005, 2005, 2006.
Yeah. So you look at from that point to now, he's gained a lot more experience.
Yeah.
But his game itself has evolved a little bit. But what you got then is similar to what you see now, and that's a testament to the hard work he puts in and how dedicated he is to the game and his craft and continually evolving.
I've never seen really everyone does that neutral zone drop pass on the power play, but I've never seen one like that. It goes all the way to the far blue line and puts it between two or three players just to get to, a high risk play. If he turns that over,
A little bit high risk. He's throwing back there pretty far.
Yeah. Well, he had to go through a couple. He had to go. I don't think the Swedish players were expecting him to do that once he got that far up ice, right? But when he passed it back to Marner, he passed it right past a couple.
They're Swedish players converging on him.
Yeah,
they're converging on him. They're not taking away the passing lane to go back.
No, exactly.
They're taking away the lanes to go forward.
Amazing play. Hey, real quick, Mahomes. Tom Brady was saying that Mahomes will. Like, he's 3-2 in Super Bowls. He'll think more about the Super Bowls he lost than the ones that he won while he's still playing.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Do you think about the Stanley Cups you lost versus the one that you won more than, do you think about those still today?
Every day. What could have been? What if? There's always moments in these games where you think back on you could have won this game, or what could we have done better? What did I not do? There's always those moments, when you're talking to people. Like I was talking to somebody the other day. He's like, "Oh, you only won one cup." I'm like, what? Oh, sorry.
You went to three finals.
Yeah, 3 finals, great, but I only won once. And it just goes to show you it's as we all know, it is not the easiest trophy to win. It is arguably the hardest trophy to win in pro sports, and it takes a village. It takes everybody pushing in the same direction, believing in one another, playing at a high level for 2 months, and you could argue now 4 months in the lead up to the playoffs and the push you have to be going and everybody firing on all cylinders as the playoffs begin. It takes an awful lot out of you too. And that's why, as we talk about these tournaments, knowing what goes into winning a Stanley Cup and fulfilling that lifelong dream and the toll it takes, and as we talked about, the injuries you play through and all the surgeries and different maladies that these guys have to deal with post playoffs, having one of these tournaments start, you'd have to do training camp in mid to late August to start one in September. There's not enough time to recover, and you're going to be missing an awful lot of these players for these, best on best tournaments. And you do it in the middle of the year. Does it suck to shut the league down? Absolutely. But it's the best option to make sure the best are there.
It's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get over it.
It's not so bad. Although you should have won the Conn Smythe, by the way, in 2006.
Okay.
In a losing cause.
I'll survive.
Like McDavid did last year. Who wins Saturday? Who do you think takes this one? And you know what? If these two teams face each other again in the championship game, it's going to be tough to beat the same team twice in a week.
Correct. I think when you look at the two teams, you would give the U.S. the advantage in net. However, Binnington's won a Stanley Cup and Hellebuck has not won anything.
He gave up a soft goal last night.
You could argue it's a push just based on experience.
Mm-hmm.
On the back end, even with Theodore out, I think the slight edge goes to Canada.
Yeah, without Quinn Hughes, it certainly does.
Yeah. But listen, Jake Sanderson's a good player.
Really good.
So I would not go to sleep on him. But I would say up front, from a high-end top level, Canada, but from a physical standpoint, the U.S. has a beat for sure.
Yeah. So who?
Just from a grit and physical style of play, you get the Kachucks, you get Miller, you get some of these guys, just being tough to play against, grinding on you shift after shift after shift. It'll be a battle. I think you'll see the emotions crank up real quick. I'm sure Brady will be running around and Miller will be running around and Matthew will be sticking Binnington or whoever plays in that. And it'll be a good game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's no doubt. So, and both teams better stay out of the box because their power player.
Power plays, yes.
Really good. It's always interesting how they decide who's the number one unit, who versus the.
I don't know if it's a one. I think it's a 1A, 1B.
Yeah.
Because you look at the options. You obviously have McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, is it Reinhart, I think, and then Makar. You could probably call that the one, and then you've got a 1B. That's pretty good as well. So it's not. There's a very, very, very small drop off between 1A and 1B.
Yeah, and I like the way
on both sides.
I like the way Werenski operates up top on the
absolutely
U.S.
He's having an active year.
He is. No one really talks about him. They do, but they don't. He just doesn't get the same recognition that Hughes and Makar get, but he's putting up a lot of points. So anyway, that's how you win the Norris, Chris. Okay.
Entirely. Rumor has it it's now an award for whoever gets the most points.
I know.
That's for another hockey sense.
I know. We may have to get into that one. It used to drive me crazy. I think Mike Green won a Norris trophy. I think he scored 30.
Yeah.
He may have scored 30, something like that.
Then he scored 30.
Yeah. The last one to do it. So, defenseman to score.
Yeah. Scoring 30 goals is a defenseman.
That tells me you're not. State. Yeah. Tells me you're kind of playing forward out there.
Kind of like your Carlson in San Jose.
That's right. I'm listed as a D, but I play forward.
Yeah.
So, all right, good stuff, Prongs. I appreciate it, man, as
all right.
always.
Have fun. Enjoy the game.
Yeah, I will. Have a great day.
You bet.
We'll see you. That's Chris Pronger joining us here on Hockey Sense. We'll take a break. We've made Jamal Mayers wait in the green room way too long. We'll bring him in just a couple of minutes. Arco Construction, by the way, taking St. Louis hockey to the next level, one ice rink at a time. They built that beautiful Centene Community Ice Center. They built the Maryville University Ice Center in Chesterfield as well. So check that out. Arco Construction, they built Putt Shack, Topgolf. They bring the fun to St. Louis, and they take St. Louis hockey to the next level, one ice rink at a time. If you're in the market to build a rink, contact our good friends, Jeff Cook, John Comlos, everybody with the team over there at Arco Construction. Let's bring in Jamal Mayers. He'll join me next. I'm Andy Strickland. This is a Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. Do not go anywhere. All right, we go to Quebec for this next segment of Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. Jamal Mayers joining us. The Pee Wee Quebec tournament is going on. Are there just kids everywhere, hockey teams everywhere? I mean,
it is an absolute hockey mayhem. Evan, the rink is beautiful. The atmosphere is electric. The city is covered in snow. It's colder than any of these kids have ever experienced. It's awesome.
So does Pee Wee Quebec, the tournament, does it just take over the town? Like, do you see signage everywhere?
Everything takes. It brings in, I want to say, over $20 million of injection into the community. So this is the talk of the town. This is the number one thing in the entire province right now. And it's an exciting time for all these kids. And it's more than just the hockey. The hockey is an amazing, cool experience. The kids are trading pins at the rink. They're trading pins in the lobby of the hotel. They're meeting different players from all over the world. And our kids get hooked up with their billet families tonight, who they'll be staying with the next 9 days. And so it's an exciting time. And we have one more exhibition game this afternoon versus Montreal. And then we play our first real game tomorrow at the big rink where the Ramparts play. There should be, we're told, between 10 and 12,000 people at our game tomorrow night.
So how many teams from Montreal are in the tournament, or do they just have one team from Montreal?
One team. Similar to what they probably would do for the Brick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what team they're choosing, but it's one team. It's not. It's definitely not a collection of teams.
All right. So does the Pee Wee Quebec tournament still bring teams over from Europe? Do you have teams from outside of North America?
Yeah, I definitely know there's a Slovakian team that we played in the tournament earlier in the year. They're here as well. Yeah, there's definitely teams from Asia, from literally all over the world.
Television cameras? Is there media out there at the rinks?
I haven't seen media, but they do provide their own coverage. Everything comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch the games, you got to buy this specific package. You can't have your own cameras there. That they control every element of it, and they do a great job.
Yeah. Okay. And you just got to get them locked in now, right? When it's game day, then you try to get into some type of routine, I would imagine, to get them focused on the game.
Yeah, that's the challenge, right, Andy? It's like you want them to enjoy the experience, enjoy the. We went dog sledding yesterday, which is an amazing experience. We had to drive in the snowstorm to get there. That was amazingly fun. But you're right. Then we've got to dial them in to get ready to play. It's not an easy thing to balance, but that's the challenge of the coaches, and the players got to try to separate both of those things.
How much have you guys talked about this tournament throughout the course of the year? Is it brought up all the time? Is it always building towards this point?
Yes, I think that the kids we've been talking about this for 2 years. We've been talking about it when we saw the 11s doing it. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about what we're going to do fundraising wise to be able to lessen the burden for the families, to allow them to have this experience. And so we've been building toward this as a season as well. We want to be playing our best hockey. I feel like we have heading into this. So we've got to bring it today, and we've got to bring it more importantly tomorrow.
How many teams are staying in your hotel? Are there teams is your hotel just packed with hockey teams?
Yeah, the Strepto Frontenac that we're staying at. Notice that my French accent has come back, being immersed in this for a little bit.
Well, it wasn't bad at all.
There's probably 12 teams staying at this hotel alone. So the energy is palpable. There's 4 different restaurants and bars in the hotel. If you didn't want to go outside, you really wouldn't have to, but we've done a great job of getting the experience out there, going to the Quebec restaurants as a team, enjoying the experiences for the families who a lot of them are going to be here on only the beginning 4 to 5 days of this trip. So we're trying to pack in as much family events and things we can do as a group.
You been eating that poutine or what?
I have not yet. I have not.
Are you on a diet? Is that what it is? Eat his
No, just haven't. I know it's everywhere. I'm kind of waiting for like the good one. Like I
Yeah.
want to make sure if I'm going to do it, if I'm going to indulge, it's got to be a good one.
Well, you may have to ask the people on Twitter or something. Where's the best poutine to go to in Quebec City? You know, it's interesting because I mean, not far away from you is where the Four Nations face-off is taking place. So I'm sure you're paying attention to what's going on there. But that's kind of crazy. It's right down the road. Is that getting a ton of? Are people talking about that too?
Absolutely. We're a little conflicted, Andy. I am Canadian. I played for Team Canada on 3 occasions in a World Championship. So my allegiance is to Canada. I'm the only one on this trip of our 60 people that I think that are cheering for Canada. So, well, maybe the dad of our goaltender might be cheering for Canada too. He's originally from Canada, but you know what? It makes it fun. I think the U.S. looks poised, looks great. Huge win last night against Finland. Kind of pulled away there in the 3rd period. I thought the Canadian team showed signs of, perhaps pulling away, and they ended up having to win it in overtime. I think both teams kind of looked past their first game and looking to tomorrow night's game, which should be an epic an event. I'm so excited to watch that one.
You know, Brady Tkachuk is just being like unleashed. You know, I mean, he's playing with his brother, so he's got a lot of energy because of that. He's never played in a Stanley Cup playoff game, so he's been locked up, not having played, playoff hockey or being on the big NHL stage. And it's his first big time international tournament with USA Hockey. This guy was the best player on the ice last night, Jamal. He was absolutely incredible. And it only makes sense that you put him and Matthew together, not just because they're brothers and it would create great storylines, but I think their games mesh well together. You put Eichel in between them. I mean, it's unbelievable watching these guys play.
It's funny because they're very different players. I know we always try to say they're the same player. They're really not. I think Brady is more like what Walt was as a player. Meat and potatoes, so hard to play against, gets to the front of the net. Matthew is perhaps a little bit more cerebral in the sense of tremendous skill set. Hands are remarkable, vision, more of a playmaker, if you will. And perhaps not as great of a skater as Brady is, but so smart and understands the game, understands the moments. And I heard his comments, I think it was yesterday, in regard to preparation for Team Canada, and he made the statement that he's been preparing for this for 9 years and that they will be ready. So smart players understand when they say things in the media, sometimes it's a message to their teammates, right? That confidence that he personified is going to be absorbed by his teammates, and they're going to take that on. That's leadership. Sometimes it goes unlooked, but he's been around long enough and smart enough to know that those comments will reach his teammates and will give them confidence as they prepare for tomorrow night.
Yeah, and he's a captain of a team too. So again, he knows how to handle those situations when he's talking to the media also, and what type of message he might be trying to send. It's interesting because Brad Marchand, he's an older player, and he kind of made a comment, after the game, he was mic'd up and be like, I'm the biggest fan here. I don't know if he was basically saying because he didn't play as much, but he's keeping a good attitude. Probably easier to do now at this stage of his career, maybe, versus when he was being younger. But that's so important, right? Even with these superstar guys that maybe aren't getting the chunk of the ice time the way a McKinnon and McDavid and Crosby and these guys are, and with the attention those guys are getting, they got to be good teammates even if they're not playing as much as what they're accustomed to, right?
And that's the challenge, right? For Cooper and his staff is, how do I keep everybody pulling in the same direction? How do I keep everybody happy, which you're not going to be able to do? And I think that Marchand was brought up in the right system, around the right people, Bergeron, Chara, who would always put team above self. And I don't think there's any of those guys organize. I think when they chose this team, they made sure they were very cognizant of, okay, if we pick this guy and he doesn't, can he do this other thing, and accept it. And so I think that as you get to the second half of the lineup, forward wise in particular, you've got to be able to be willing to do other things. And I think the management knew that and picked those types of guys, Marchand being one of them, that can play on the first line if something happens, but will accept a role on the fourth line.
Yeah. And he still contributed and had a good game too. So
yeah,
which is important for even a player like him. But it's interesting because Canada's dealing with an injury right now with Shea Theodore. So the way the rosters are constructed, they don't have a player they can just, bring into the fold. I know the Harley kid from Dallas apparently is in Boston, and he'll practice with the team and be around the team, but he can't technically be on the roster. I wondered if they should expand the rosters just to, give the coaching staff a little more options. I mean, these are NHL players, and if a player were to block a shot here, on Saturday against the Americans and isn't 100% going into the next game, you'd like to have another option. But at the same time, these are all prideful NHL stars. You don't want to have guys who are just giving up their 2 weeks to go to a beach somewhere to come there and knowing that they're not going to play. That may be a little bit difficult. Where do you stand on the size of the rosters, and should there be more flexibility with this rule, in your opinion?
I think there should be. And for the reasons that you mentioned, but also for the experience-wise, right? How great would it be to bring two other younger players? Maybe you make a rule that they have to be under 23.
Yeah.
And that way you're kind of giving your next generation of players that are right on the cusp an opportunity to not necessarily play. They could if they have to, if injuries come in, but you're giving them a taste for what's to come in the next 3 or 4 years in their career.
I like that. Do you automatically stick with Binnington? And let me just say this. It's different than the NHL, right, where you have your number one and then your backup. I mean, these guys are all number one goaltenders for the most part. So I would imagine there was some type of plan going into the tournament. Binnington gets game one, and maybe he gets game two if he played well. Or maybe they've already planned on to go into Adin Hill. Is that too risky to make a switch? Do you have to stay with Binnington? How do you look at it?
Honestly, I probably would go with Adin Hill. And the only reason why I say this is that Benner played really well in overtime in the third period, but I don't think he liked those 2 goals.
No.
And the reason why I say this is this. If you go to Adin Hill and he outperforms the Benner, then you stay with Adin Hill.
Yeah.
He's a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. Now, if you go to Adin Hill and you evaluate it and you say Benner outperformed Adin Hill, then you go back to Benner and he's the guy. I still think I know it's a short tournament. I know you don't have much time. I can see an argument for both, but based off of how the game went, I'd probably be leaning to giving Adin Hill a look and then deciding based on both of their performances, who you want to go with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, then you can evaluate. And listen, Binnington made the big saves when it mattered the most, which is the most important thing for a goaltender. Now, you could also argue if he made the saves earlier in the game, then, you're not forced to make those big saves in overtime and you win the game in regulation. Winning these games in regulation is huge, Jamal, because you get that extra point.
Yeah, you're right. And it'll be interesting because we all want one final, right? We all want those 2 jerseys behind you there to be playing in the final. Nothing against Finland or Sweden, but I think all the NHL people and the NHLPA that put this together, that's the matchup they want in the final.
Do you think NHL players are all paying attention and watching this? I mean, even those that are on vacation or whatever, do you think they just cut the cord and they don't care? Or do you think this is really grabbing everyone's attention? And I mean, both games have been a smashing success so far. They've been wildly entertaining. They've been fun to watch. So this has been great for the NHL. You had Crosby on center stage. Him being the best player and the number one star in the first game, obviously, I think worked. You couldn't have scripted it any better, if you're the National Hockey League.
I think players are, if it's on while they're on the beach, on the vacation, they'll watch it. I think more of them were going to watch tomorrow night's game. And I think that almost all of them will watch the final.
Yeah. And they'll all be back by then anyway, by next
That's true.
Thursday. So, Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Who has the edge in your opinion? I'll leave you with that. Canada or USA? Who do you like in that game?
Honestly, like my heart's with Canada, but the way that US played, I think they played a more team of they played a better game and for a longer stretch of period of time, and I like their goaltenders better. I'm leaning toward the US, although my heart's with Canada.
Listen, you're a student of the game. Crosby's 3 assists, they were all different, all primary assists. I haven't seen a neutral zone drop pass like that on the power play where you take it that deep into the up ice all the way to the blue line and then just feather it back to what he did to Marner. But, I mean, his second assist in terms of how he protected the puck on Stone's goal was amazing. I mean, his first assist on the power play to McKinnon was incredible. Which one was your favorite? Which one was the most impressive for you?
Jeez, I think the drop pass was probably the most impressive. When you're a hockey person like yourself and you watch him drop and you're like, what is he? Oh, like your first reaction is, what is he doing?
Yeah.
And then you realize what he's doing. Like that's thinking on another level, another planet. And so, like, I wonder in my mind, like, when did he decide he was dropping it? It had to have been when he crossed center ice. He must have saw where Marner went. Like, to think about that. So you can't decide that when you get to the blue line. He decided that when he got to center.
Mm-hmm.
So to be thinking that far ahead is just remarkable.
And then he stayed onside, got back onside, and he put it right on Marner's tape. It was like a hard pass, too. You know what I mean? Who's the first player you ever saw do that? Was it the Sedins?
Well, I think it was the Detroit Red Wings started with the kickback before anybody. And I remember being a penalty killer and wondering and asking the coaches, like, what do we do? Like, because you go with the original D, who was Lidstrom, you'd go with him, right? And he'd just drag you to one side and drop it. And then now you're flat-footed. It really was difficult when it first came out.
When are kids doing that yet or no? Like, are you?
No, the problem with our rules, USA Hockey, unfortunately, is we still don't have. You're not allowed to ice it on a penalty kill,
right?
Which I think needs to change, and I think it will change next year for bantams, I believe, and higher.
It's relatively new, right? They just brought that into within the last 5 years or so. I like it.
Same thing with touch icing. We need to go to touch icing, get these games going, get the kids to understand the flow of the game and how it works. And unfortunately, we're just not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Best of luck to your team, Jamal. I'm looking forward to getting the updates and seeing how it goes. Regardless, it's a great experience for everybody, and you get to represent St. Louis hockey, which is the most important thing, man. We've been sending teams there for, 30 years or whatever it is. So these kids obviously get a great opportunity to do this. It's cool to see. Who brought you to Hockey Sense today?
Well, first off, it's Bartolino's. You know, they have 5 restaurants: Bartolino's South, Bartolino's Osteria, Chris's Pancake and Dining, and Chris's at the Docket. And Bartolino's Twin Oaks. They forge many lasting relationships with their customers. They're a family model. Cook good food, serve plenty. 50 plus years in business. Only 2 places to dine: at Bartolino's or at home, or at one of Bartolino's family restaurants.
Hey, before I'm heading to Chicago today. Ty's got games there this weekend, but I'm going to stop by Dobbs real quick just to make sure they just check my tires, make sure my I'm taking my wife's car, and I just want to make sure the air is where it needs to be in the tires before I drive to Chicago today.
One of the most important things to do in the winter is when it gets cold out there to adjust your tire pressure. You're absolutely right. Well, Dobbs will know what they're doing. They've got 43 locations. They got winter tire deals all this month, including $275 savings on new Goodyear tires, plus deals on Coopers, Continentals, BF Goodrich. Go to Dobbs.com for complete details. It doesn't matter what you drive: a car, light truck, van, SUV, hybrid, EV, your wife's car. Dobbs has a team of specialists and ASC certified associates to service them all. Go to Dobbs.com for more.
Appreciate it, Jamal. Have a great time up there, man. We'll see. Talk to you next week.
Perfect. See you, buddy.
See you, buddy. Take care. That's Jamal Mayers. Always great to catch up with him. And this Pee Wee Quebec tournament, by the way, has been going on for a long, long time. So it's great to see another team get an opportunity from St. Louis to go there and represent St. Louis hockey. So we wish them the best. Hey, that interview with Jamal Mayers is brought to you by Blue Note Roofing. Called David Novak today. Hey, listen, Cam Jansen's been warning us about the tornadoes that are around the corner. Tornado season is coming, which means you're going to need to know who to call When you need that new roof, new siding, new gutters, new soffit, new fascia, who do you call? You call David Novak from Blue Note Roofing. Look for that yellow truck with the blue notes all over it. 314-920-5713. David Novak, the best in the business. 314-920-5713. You'll see his number on the screen, too, if you're watching this show here on YouTube. 314-920-5713. Of course, First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. We love our friends over at First Community and everything they do to help us bring you great hockey content here with Hockey Sense. Of course, you heard that the Blues inducted the newest members of the class of 25. The St. Louis Blues Hall of Fame. First Community is the presenting sponsor of the Blues Hall of Fame. That wouldn't be possible without the Blues Hall of Fame. So you think about, or without First Community, you think about First Community, everything they do to support hockey here in St. Louis with the Little Blues program and also, obviously, with the St. Louis Blues Hockey Hall of Fame. They are the presenting sponsor of that. This Little Blues program, though, was incredible. I've seen a bunch of kids on the ice recently. They get all these on-ice instruction, great instructors. They have a great time, great introduction to the game. And this is the best thing for parents, man. All the equipment comes with it. So for a very reasonable cost, you get everything from skates to helmet to stick, everything, head to toe. So you don't have to go to the hockey shop, load up. Some parents may be overwhelmed, not even sure what they're supposed to buy for their son or daughter to get them introduced to the game. So this is the best way to do it. Little Blues, man. My son, I bet you 90% of the kids, if not more than that, got their start with Little Blues, and so many other kids in the area did as well. So check that out. First Community brings us Hockey Sense each and every week. Same with our friends over there at Four Hands Brewing Company, Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, Lordo's Diamonds, all our friends over there with Arco Construction, and Blue Note Roofing. Again, 314-920-5713. You call David Novak today. Blue Note Roofing. Again, look for that yellow truck. We thank our friends with Fanatics, who gave us these jerseys. We got Canada on one side. We got USA, baby, on the other side. Looking forward to that game on Saturday. It's going to be an amazing, amazing matchup with all the star power that's on the ice. This Four Nations tournament has been incredible so far. So we're looking forward to that coming up over the weekend. Again, support our sponsors. Support all our friends over here at Half Coast Studios, Aiden, everybody. I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We'll do it again next Friday, each and every Friday, live from Half Coast Studios. It's Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Have a great weekend, everybody.